Welcome back to the Action Movie Show, and this is April 28th. Wait, it's Monday, right?
No.
It's not Monday?
No.
This isn't one of your ninja tricks, is it? Because we're supposed to be on Monday.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately, we were actually supposed to be on Monday, but it didn't. It didn't happen that way. I was actually, if you notice, the background looks a little bit different because I'm not even in the same building. I'm completely in a different place entirely. I'm actually in my house. Usually I shoot my end of it out of my apartment. I'm actually in my house. You can behold the lovely ambiance. I'm actually in my office, which is kind of an open space. That's why you can see a closet door over here, this gap right here, which actually leads to my stairs, and then this lovely piece of high-tech machinery, this thermostat from the 1970s. So that's what I've been doing this week. Manyninjas, how's it been this week for you?
I have new things too, you know. Like this guy.
I literally just wanted to stay on you with that reaction, you holding that stuffed animal.
Yeah, 1 second. No, somebody else got the phone. We're good.
All right. We're highly professional here on the Action Movie Show. This is what happens when I'm surrounded by boxes. I'm actually literally surrounded by boxes as we speak. Three-quarters of my things are still in boxes, which I probably should have labeled better. But that in a nutshell is the reason why we've had a bit of a layover since the last episode. But let's get right into it. This week we had planned on talking about 1992's Universal Soldier. We are gonna talk about that right now. So we've had a couple of extra weeks to percolate on our thoughts. So, Manyninjas, just as a short version, how do you feel about possibly the greatest zombie movie ever made?
Well, it has undead people. It has Ivan Drago. And it has Jean-Claude Van Damme. How could you go wrong with this?
Yeah, I say it facetiously, but actually, if you think about it, technically, the whole premise of the thing, and I'll read the super IMDb super quick review. Like it's about as trim as a review. I shouldn't say review, like synopsis. This is what IMDb writes on about this movie. Right here, go up. Luke and Scott were killed in Vietnam, but the Army has a secret project for reanimating dead people as near-perfect soldiers. Now, the funny part for me is that they're already dead, but they've been reanimated. Technically, this is probably the most action-oriented zombie movie ever made, if you think about it. Because basically all the Universal Soldiers are effectively zombies. Which, if you think about it in that context, makes this movie a lot more unintentionally entertaining.
Effectively, in this case, you'll have to forgive me. I'm actually going to skip ahead to do my mini review of this. Generally, there's a lot of unintended comedy with how, particularly for Van Damme's character, how he reacts, attempting to learn what it is and what requirements are there to be alive and actually functioning as a normal human being again, instead of as one of the Unisouls subjects here. Which, of course, there's kind of the back and forth between what he remembered. Clearly, they give away very, very early. Basically, the first 10 minutes, you see both of the main characters get killed. Technically, they kill each other. In reality, there. And the rest of the thing is basically just kind of a drag out. Even after the end, this thing still goes on, kind of deal. And how someone's trying to get past it, and how the other character is kind of stuck there. They're
Well, I think
moving on without really moving on.
I think the problem was that technically the very concept lends itself to really you can drag this out almost as long as you want because they were dead in the first place. We'll basically let's give our non-spoiler review because I'm not really giving anything away by saying they're dead. I literally just read in the synopsis, reanimated dead soldiers. I literally just told you that already. But I'm gonna say, as an action movie, just as a standalone, it was highly entertaining. It's one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's better movies, more famous movies. It spawned a bunch of sequels of varying quality, mostly not very good. Dolph Lundgren's always enjoyable whenever he's in anything, so that's always fun. Um, Overall, as a plot, this was actually fine. Like, it's very straightforward, but any decent action movie worth its salt is usually going to be pretty straightforward. You don't want to get caught up in too much of a convoluted plot. They don't have a tendency of being able to resolve it if they make it too complicated. They didn't do that. So that's why this became a movie that spawned a couple of sequels and was one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's more notable movies. Um, it was pretty much fun to watch from the get go. There were sections of it that were just a vehicle for Dolph Lundgren to be crazy, which he does very well. And then we'll reference it more as we go along. But I really feel that the part that makes this fun is that in many ways, Dolph Lundgren effectively, I think he borrows parts of this character for his character in The Expendables. Because again, we've got to go. Again, he reaches into the crazy well in order to make it kind of work. And then this is kind of where that got started for him. Because Drago is iconic a character, but Drago wasn't crazy. He was just a Soviet soldier committed who, in the end, was fighting against Rocky Balboa, and that was his own thing. But there's nothing crazy about him. But in this movie, there is no doubt where he stands on the crazy train.
Dolph Lundgren is inherently insane, which makes him incredibly fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you let him go, you wind him up, you let him go, and that makes for good TV or for good movies. So how about your first non-spoilery review, Manyninjas?
All right, well, I was starting on that, but kind of got a bit sidetracked there. Effectively, the plot, yeah, it's light on plot. It seems basically they just jump from the initial scenes. It just basically played out how the main characters kind of started their plight, or kind of a prologue, and then brought it back to the modern day where this is where all the action is. And, well, realistically, the emotional range for the main characters start out incredibly kind of slim, and really, honestly, they stay pretty slim for the most part there. It's still generally entertaining to watch. This actually got a lot of nice humorous bits to go along with the action sequences that are going on there. And realistically, the pairing of Van Damme's character and Lundgren's character, and how those two generally interact with each other, is just really fun to watch. So I'm hard pressed to think of too many bad things I could say about this film. It is actually a really enjoyable film overall.
I definitely agree with that. What I would say um, is that because now we'll shift over into talking about the actual plot. Let's just talk about how they die. So they're both Vietnam, soldiers. And it's fun kind of watching Jean-Claude Van Damme run around the jungles of fake Vietnam, and then they come up with the scene that they'll kind of redo. Um, Basically, Dolph Lundgren's character, which is fantastic. So let's get their names in here. So Jean-Claude Van Damme is, I believe, Luc Devereaux. Hold on. Yes, Luc Devereaux, and Dolph Lundgren is Andrew Scott. Now, first of all, you can't really trust anybody who has two first names. You just don't. Andrew Scott, you're asking for trouble right there. Um, I think since everybody refers to him as Sarge, so I'll assume he was the sergeant for that platoon. So Jean-Claude Van Damme is walking around trying to figure out what's going on. He sees dead soldiers and dead Vietnamese people, bodies strewn everywhere, and then he manages to catch one of the soldiers who's still alive, who's running away, and he goes, what happened here? And it basically explains it's like Sarge has gone crazy, um, and that leads into him discovering the guy, and the manifestation of his craziness is that in his mind nobody's listening to him. So in order to fix this, he cuts off their ear and makes a necklace out of the ears so that everyone can listen.
That is one crazy son of a bitch.
You can tell that we can tell that unfortunately this time around. One second. Let me go back to Manyninjas here.
We are just gonna use props all day, aren't we? I really should have rigged up something to make the head not bore me. We need Teamsters on this end. We helped set you up in the house. Can we get some Teamsters here? I would like some.
We're gonna work on this, but just so you know, the audience, this past couple of weeks have been like no sleep. As you can see, the walls are barren because even then, with all the amount of effort, I probably have gone up 200, 300 flights of stairs over the course of the last week or two, just getting stuff up and down. And then at the same time, there was just no time between work and then moving. There wasn't a lot of time to set a lot of things up. Usually we'll have some slides. We'll have a little fun. Manyninjas will, we'll have a picture of like Dolph Lundgren being crazy or something. No. In this case, we have a man who's just moved into effectively an empty house. Now, you guys will have to let me know in the comments if you hear like background noises because I live not far from a train station. So this microphone's pretty good about keeping the noise here, but if you do catch any of that, you can kind of let me know, and I'll try to figure out a way to protect that. But yeah, basically, all we've got is a very tired new homeowner, a man in a ninja suit, and a puppet. Well, I should say an action figure, a stuffed animal that we will use as a puppet.
The term you're looking for is Ninja Bear. Not Teddy Bear, Ninja Bear. One second, I just need to stretch out. I knew I haven't done something in the past week or so. That's why I feel so stiff these days. We're testing the audience. Okay.
While he's stretching himself out, getting himself back in. So basically, where we left off before we got on a bit of a tangent was that Dolph Lundgren's crazy, and the manifestation is the necklace with the ears. That's basically how you. And they do replay into this theme. I do like that they actually incorporated this later on, and they brought him back into it. But let's just talk about that. So Jean-Claude Van Damme discovers him. He tries to talk him off the ledge. Doesn't work. They end up getting into a fight where they end up shooting each other. And then they die. And then, of course, in traditional fashion, the people who go and find all the bodies, they get body bags, they do whatever, and then they take these two guys, and in the 1960s, or maybe even early 70s, I'm not sure which part of Vietnam they were presumably in, they put them into body bags and then put them on ice, and they end up in the Universal Soldier program. It's never made clear how much later this is, but if we assume that the movie takes place in modern day, that'd be about 1992. So, assuming let's say they were in Vietnam in about 1970, probably more likely the late 60s. But if we say 1970, there was 22 years later, and they've preserved these bodies for 22 years in order to set up this Universal Soldier program. In the preceding 22 years, who thinks to themselves, let's keep these bodies on ice for 22 years so that eventually we'll get this program going?
Actually, I don't think. Well, you're pretty close to, I guess, 22 years, but I think they mentioned an actual number later in there as for how long Luke's character had been missing, since they do eventually figure out some more of his backstory and actually what happened to him, and he was actually missing closer to 25 years, I think. So yeah, this definitely from the original Vietnam period moves into the 90s. So he's been at least gone 25 years. They give or take his age as a character, if he had been there as a normal time, at around 50 years old.
Well, if we use in the great spirit of action movie show, we're going to delve into this deeply. If we assume 1992 is present day, 25 years is 1967, which is right in line with Vietnam. So, assuming he's about 50, means he would have been about 25 at the time of Vietnam. At the time of Vietnam, that he would have been doing that, which is probably pretty close to accurate. So in 1992, Jean-Claude Van Damme was 32. So he would have been playing basically a 25-year-old, which It's not that much of a stretch, to be honest.
Effectively, for the most part, part of the reason they explain the discrepancy is because there's some serious mad science going on with whatever is developing the Universal Soldier Program and everything involved in maintaining the soldiers. Because even when they go into the mumbo jumbo about how the science works, they basically say in order to reanimate these bodies, they're supercharging the cells. So they're altering these people or these corpses on a cellular level. So there's some serious crap that apparently they managed to figure out how to do, and it took quite a bit of time in order to accomplish it. But once they were able to do so, they effectively kept them between that and the various other treatments related to the Unisol program, kept all these people from aging and dying in a normal fashion, which is something that does come up later on, unless the bodies are completely so utterly destroyed and they have no means to properly regenerate them using the Unisol related equipment, which gets destroyed partway through the film, I should mention. So if it weren't for that, they hypothetically could have brought them back if it was done in a reasonable time.
And in conclusion, science is evil.
Government science. You have to be specific there. Government science. Especially related to army forces. Or any kind of armed forces, period, in this way they set it up.
In movies, has science ever been not evil? Government or not? Even if they mean well. Everything ends up being Skynet or zombie Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Science made this. Not
Does
really.
that say
No.
Cub Zero?
Oh, yes. Gag. Lots of gags. I think I need one for every color now. Yes. I didn't even know.
I just wanted to zoom in on my face of basic horror as I try to contemplate what just happened. All right. I haven't slept nearly enough for this. All right, Manyninjas, do me a favor. We talked briefly about it. We've got kind of an idea of the technology, and science is evil, you know. And we can conclude, given the fact that it took him 25 years in order to actually get that program off the ground. So from 1967 to 1992, by 1992 they had done a couple of missions, but only a handful. They reference that in the movie as part of one of the missions that they go on. But so from 1967 to 1992, they basically kept these bodies on ice. So you could really say this is a scientific version of, and Arnold Schwarzenegger would appreciate this. Oh, I should say, was not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Steven Seagal would appreciate this. Really, it was scientific foreplay. Really, 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 really long foreplay.
I would actually go with, they kind of probably took the technology they used to freeze Walt Disney and then figured out how to make it work. I'm surprised Walt Disney was not a Unisol himself.
Could you imagine this zombie mouse running around?
I don't need to imagine. That's happening now.
Yeah, pretty much. So why don't you? So that's kind of the first spot that I wanted to start off with. I'm gonna go grab the actual Blu-ray. It's just at the end of my hallway here. While I'm doing that though, why don't you set up your next point? We've kind of covered some of the basics, but where do you want to go from here?
Actually, realistically, you did already start the point off with how they really love to repeat things in the course of this film. So, all right. First off, in the very beginning of the scene...
Perfect. Have a bit of a chat and tell the audience that. I'll be right back.
All right. Basically, at the beginning of the scenes, back in Vietnam, you have Van Damme's character and you have Dolph Lundgren's character basically have a less than successful standoff with each other as they basically introduce the character. Okay, Lundgren's character is clearly insane. Pretty much kills people there. Kills the hostages. Even kills one with a grenade, and they basically just gun each other down at the end. Moving onward, we go back, or we move, give or take 25 years into the future, where the first visible mission for the Unisols that we see as the audience And shortly after that, and you have the reporter who is trying to figure out what the hell's going on with all the Unisol stuff, breaking on there, stumbling across the military site, where gets rounded up by 3 Unisols, and it includes Lundgren's character and Van Damme's character. What happens here? They're basically both in the same crouching position, or both hostage position that Andrew Stott had the 2 previous that's what I'm looking at. 2 previous hostages back in the Vietnam era. They start their scene as like one of them is executed, the cameraman's executed, and basically that's the start of a series of flashbacks where Van Damme's character effectively plays out the same routine, which they ended up doing, only this time he drives off a bit because there's a slight alteration due to the news reporter changing things a little bit, but basically they play out the same scene as the first scene in Vietnam. And then later, near the end of the film, they change a few things again. There's no direct execution there, but the grenade scene, the grenade toss to kill one of the hostages, gets played out at basically the conclusion of the film. And it's basically, they have certain things that just keep repeating again and again and again.
Yeah, I would say that was the big thing, that they basically used the repeat, a flashback, as an excuse to explain how they recovered their memories. And they do have the scientist guy explain that they use drugs to suppress the memories, but the last memories of their life are very strongly imprinted in their brain. And that's how we explain the fact that at the beginning of the movie, the Universal soldiers are all kind of very much blank slates. They're pretty robotic, very much zombie-like, to be honest. There's really not much going on there. They pretty much will follow their instructions and just go. But then once they start recovering those memories, then they start to become more of their old selves. Like, there's more of a personality. Dolph Lundgren's crazy is allowed to fully manifest itself so that he can have speeches. Like in the supermarket. He goes and he has a speech explaining. Because the big premise here is that Jean-Claude Van Damme's character was they're both soldiers. But Jean-Claude Van Damme's character's tour was over. He was ready to go home. The other guy was so scarred by what he had seen and what he had done in Vietnam that he went crazy. And for him, it was like nobody was really allowed to leave. He couldn't accept that people could just turn it off and go home. And that was his main issue that resulted in the original fight between the two of them. And then that replayed itself and continued on, because for him, everybody else was a traitor, and that's how you ended up where we ended up. Now, I did want to point something out. So in this guy right here, this is basically like the poster art. I do like very much that the guys have, like, very straightforward. They're actually very basic uniforms. I think the only real modification they made was that they gave him this eyepiece, and I don't know if you can tell that. You can see that Dolph Lundgren has one and Jean-Claude Van Damme has one. But realistically, like, it's not like a cybernetic thing. It's just like an attachment. It lets them see a little bit of information. It lets them hear from their command. So in effect, they're autonomous units. So it's not like they were wired into a robotic thing. The full extent of the science fiction is we reanimated dead bodies, accelerated the cells so they can heal themselves faster than normal, as long as the body is kept at a very cool temperature.
Pretty much. Although they pretty much just include that they also had to receive injections every now and then in order to help stimulate and keep up the fact that they were virtually indestructible. They couldn't feel pain, meant to suppress emotion. They had to have those regular injections on top of the constant cold treatment. Well, technically, on top of the headgear, they also did have some kind of a special wrist-based kind of apparatus that helped monitor the vitals.
Yeah, it was basically a temperature gauge, just to let them know if they were getting too hot.
Yeah. Which I guess was also partially tied into the whole headgear there. Although you did see some of them take off the headgears, like in the initial hostage situation in the 90s, where clearly you had one who was carrying stuff in disguise, but changed into a kind of construction worker's costume or uniform. So he wasn't clearly wearing his headgear as everyone else was that was still in the proper Unisol uniform. But pretty much he still had some means to kind of hear in, or at least he got his instructions ahead of time in order to proceed with the plan. Yeah, that sounds about.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed for that scene. They having a full military apparatus and military strategy in their back pocket. Effectively, their strategy was, we'll dress him up like someone who works there and have him keep walking forward until he's shot repeatedly. Then he can rise from the dead and then shoot them back.
Yes, because the gigantic construction worker wouldn't stand out in some fashion. It's not, no, he was absolutely massive compared to everyone else that was in that general area, dwarfing everyone.
It's strategy, Manyninjas. It's strategy.
No, I'd say strategy would be having someone that is of appropriate size creep into the locations about and pretend to be a hostage. Sorry, and like, no, we're gonna send this large lumbering man. What are you supposed to be in this case? You know, he's the meat shield. But what is he guarding? What is he shielding? Nothing. We're just using him as a cameraman. A cameraman that can absorb bullets. And will get back up and shoot them back. Why is he shooting them back? I thought he was just a cameraman. Because even though his motions are suppressed, he's still pissed that you just shot him like 12 plus times. You hurt his feelings. Along with his liver and various other internal organs. But he can't feel that, thankfully, because of the injections and everything. But trust us, he's pissed.
I very much enjoyed your synopsis of the scene, and I like that. And I like that you were able to really get into the emotional depth of the zombie character.
These are very emotional people. Well, just let's jump in a little bit later in the film, shall we? All right, so now we have the news reporter and the cameraman who just got caught pretty much on the top secret military site. They've been rounded up by Dolph Lundgren's character, one more Unisol, and of course Van Damme's character. And this is the next obvious bit, or that make it clear that Van Damme's character Luke is not the only one getting some memory back, as Lundgren's character basically executes someone on the spot there, which pretty much he started to be. Even you noted that he seemed to be showing extra violent tendencies compared to everyone else in earlier scenes, and this is kind of a more emphasis that there's something off kilter there. Van Damme suddenly gets his memory, or begins to remember a bit of that scene, along with probably remembering, because this is Van Damme here, that because of his big legs and years of karate, he can do the splits real easy. Which, as a side note, spoiler warning, Van Damme does not do the splits at any point in this film. I was very shocked to see that myself. And they start playing out things from the old memory back, repeat the scene, and as Van Damme is attempting to drive away, of course you have Andrew Scott remembering, I should be saying something right now. I should be expressing something. What's going on? I know what to say. Traitor. Just the one word off before they continue onward. And as he begins to slowly remember things, and oddly enough for Andrew Scott's character, or the Andrew Scott character, he's the only one to actually remember his own name as he becomes more self-aware. Luke's character, or the Van Damme's character Luke, doesn't actually recall his own name without any help. Or he needs help in order to get that information back. But Andrew Scott gets that back on his own.
He has two first names.
Yes, but he remembers those names and his old position. And even before remembering that, it's like, I need something on my neck. I need some bling. Here, here, here. What kind of bling is that? Extremely haunted bling. I am a big fan of Halloween. I can hear everything now.
Yeah, it did give opening for some heinous puns. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Wait. No, yeah, he did say that. So we can blame the Unisol program for, I think it's Verizon?
Yeah, I believe it was Horizon.
Yeah. I think that's something they don't want people to remember.
You mean that their association, Can You Hear Me Now, is a dude who cut off a bunch of people's ears and wore it as a necklace?
Basically, that it's a Dolph Lundgren role other than Ivan Drago. They probably wouldn't mind that one. Verizon. If he dies, he dies.
I will break you. But yeah, the The thing with a lot of it, other than the heinous puns and one-liners, is that yeah, the two main characters start to regain their memories more so than anybody else, and then Lundgren starts to use the other Universal soldiers kind of as his team for a little bit, really briefly, in order to try to hunt down Luke Devereaux and the reporter lady. Um, so the rest of the movie really is them kind of running away, which then leads us eventually to the climactic battle. Because really, there's nothing else to it. It's basically you set it up explaining how they got there. You show that they're starting to regain their memory. So then eventually Dolph Lundgren's character turns on, his creators, so to speak. Now going to another allegory, it's the Frankenstein thing. You created the monster, but now the monster's turning on you. You kind of deserved it because you started messing with forces. So your creation turns on you, and then the two main characters eventually end up battling. So it's basically two dead guys fighting for supremacy over something.
Yeah, what effectively, aside from a really, really twisted revenge angle, after a while, yeah, realistically, assuming Lundgren's character Andrew Scott did win, what would happen with it next? What could that character possibly have done next? The answer is not a whole hell of a lot. At least with the Van Damme's character and Luke, his goal was basically just to try to go back home and, in this case, reestablish his old life. That one makes a little more sense. Unless Andrew Scott really wanted to go back to Vietnam that badly, who knows? There wasn't exactly much motivation or anything that made sense here. Which makes it funnier when that character ends up reoccurring or reappearing in later things, because this is not the only Universal Soldier film that Dolph Lundgren ends up starring in. But that's another story, which we're probably going to go into, and why that seems a little odd.
Yeah, we'll touch on it briefly because there is a little bit of an interesting thing that happens with this character. But starting off with the first movie, yeah, one character clearly has motivation. The other one presumably revenge, I guess. Technically speaking, it's one of those things where it's like, even if you want to argue, okay, I'm going to get revenge for you killing me, he killed Van Damme also. They're both dead. The whole movie. They're both dead.
Dead, and one of them was very, very hungry.
Yeah, that was actually I don't. It's not worthy of a full-fledged discussion, but what Manyninjas is referring to is that Jean-Claude Van Damme and the reporter go to a diner, and apparently he hasn't eaten. He hasn't really. He's dead. They keep him alive. I guess that maybe they feed them intravenously or something like that. Something to keep him going. Not real meals per se. So he hasn't eaten. So since his metabolism is also cranked up like everything else, so he's eating and eating and eating. And then eventually, they don't really have money to pay for it. So eventually, a bunch of the patrons at the restaurant decide to pick a fight for Van Damme's character, which gives him an excuse to basically kick the living crap out of him and then throw a bunch of them around. Basically just pummel them all to death. So we established, number one, that he is, one of those universal soldiers, so because he's able to easily dispatch everybody. He basically has superhuman powers because of the technology. And then also the fact is he basically beats them all up and then he sits back down and eats and keeps on eating, basically. And at the very end, he's eating some popcorn. And that's pretty much the scene. It's just an excuse to have Van Damme kick a bunch of people.
That's partially correct. He was also eating in the middle of beating up people. Namely the popcorn thing. He picked up some popcorn, but in between punching and kicking people around in that diner scene. And basically, he was just all grins at the end of it. It's like, hey, this is nice. As he was eating, and just kept eating after beating up everyone that decided to challenge him there. And of course,
you've got time between pummeling people.
Yeah.
You got a moment. You want to grab a quick snack. It's fine.
Yeah, but no. Basically, the whole thing was that was one of the more comic relief sections of it. Although generally there are a few comic relief moments with Van Damme's interactions with the reporter, whose name I just can't remember her name right now.
I can look it up here for you. Give me a second.
That'd be great. Basically, at the hotel, fairly early on after the escape there, a scene involving trying to find the tracking device that was implanted in Van Damme. Who apparently they just had an excuse that's like, yeah, Van Damme, it's like, Jean-Claude, we're going to need you to do something for us. What's that? We need you to pretty much strip buck naked multiple times during the film. Is there a reason? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, that's the reason. It's like, we're going to do some pretty much some side gags are pretty much there. And that's how we're going to justify this. The only one that made kind of sense there would probably be the removal of the tracking device, although they probably removed with the clothes bit. Yeah, basically, no, that was mostly a gag thing, too.
Yeah. And the character's name you're looking for, Veronica Roberts. She's the reporter.
Yeah. So pretty much, Veronica's character helped to push the things along there, but also was used for a lot of just general comedic spots on there. Because most of the film was interaction between Veronica and Luke. And basically trying to play with the fact that, in this case, Van Damme was basically playing the straight man role for this, as he basically doesn't know what the hell's going on. It just takes everything matter-of-factly, while Veronica's character basically was the big overreaction, if you can call it that, because realistically not too much of an overreaction, because everything how absurd everything was going around. And basically, while Van Damme's character, Luke, took everything in stride. It's like, it is what it is. And I am French. How am I going to explain how I am French when everyone else is clearly there? Oh, I'm from Louisiana. Okay.
Hey, he's from the French Quarter. What do you want? And apparently they took the French Quarter things very seriously. So instead of sounding like Gambit, he sounds like a guy from Brussels. Obviously.
What I would like is for them to fit in the splits somewhere. You hire Van Damme, you put the splits somewhere, anywhere. It doesn't matter. I think it's part of his contract normally.
It wouldn't make any sense. They usually come up with convoluted ways to incorporate it, but even here, there is no scenario where it would make even the remotest amount of sense.
It's like, how can we fit this in? Of course, what I'm about to say pretty much is a little advanced there. It's like, okay, we have the recording here, we need to do the splits. Can we really fit the splits in here? It's go time. Splits right there. On the bus ride. It's like, I am now doing the split between the big truck and the bus. Let's find an excuse.
It's go time. You really brought GoDaddy commercial into this?
Yeah, because those commercials are awesome. They're terrible, but they're awesome at the same time.
You've taken us down a dark, dark path. That started with you and the stuffed bear. It is a bear, right?
Ninja bear.
Indeed. So, that pretty much covers, to be honest, that covers pretty much the plot of this movie, I would say. I would think so. I don't know. Was there anything else in the actual movie that's missing that you can think of that we would want to discuss?
Mainly, this movie is, for the most part, it's a really straightforward movie. But since I don't see us necessarily talking about some parts of this or any of the sequels anytime soon, I'll just bring back up the point involving the Andrew Scott character played by Dolph Lundgren, and the fact you will see Dolph Lundgren in later movies in the series.
Ooh, but I do want to talk about the sequels.
Yeah, well, in this case, can I explain why it seems a bit odd that Dolph Lundgren does reappear in later versions or later movies of the series?
You definitely can, but do you mind if I just set up by explaining what the sequels are?
All right, go ahead.
All right, because it'll actually fit it play into what you're about to explain. Let me just run you guys real quick what comes after. So this one comes out in 1992, Universal Soldier. There are two sequels made to it right after. Universal Soldier 2, which is Brothers in Arms, that's in 1998. Universal Soldier 3, Unfinished Business, also in 1998. Those two were basically direct-to-TV, direct-to-DVD, and a TV miniseries which was meant to try to launch a TV show. They tried, not successfully. This was followed by Universal Soldier: The Return, which actually had Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. So these other ones didn't actually have any Dolph Lundgren or Jean-Claude Van Damme. So 2 and 3, nope, they weren't even involved. Universal Soldier: The Return had Jean-Claude Van Damme back in it. It also had some interesting people. So Michael J. White, which some of you may be familiar with, Bill Goldberg of wrestling fame, and also Kiana Tom, who was a like a fitness person on ESPN for years. She was in the movie as well. It didn't really take off. And actually, to tell you how well this movie went over, this was the last theatrical movie that Jean-Claude Van Damme was in until 2008's JCVD, which basically parodies Jean-Claude Van Damme being Jean-Claude Van Damme. So from 1999 to 2008, nothing. That's how well this movie went over. And in the end, they, as they continued the movies, they ended up ignoring the events of The Return. Then you go to 2009. You have Universal Soldier: Regeneration, which actually brings back Jean-Claude Van Damme and brings back Dolph Lundgren. And from here, if you want, I think here's your spot where you want to talk about Dolph Lundgren and this movie series.
Yeah. Realistically, Dolph Lundgren does make another appearance there, and I believe one more in a more recent film, which...
I will discuss that in one moment, but for now, that covers up to 2009.
Yeah. Realistically, the problem with bringing back Lundgren, and they have to pretty much give another sciencey explanation of how that one occurs, is you see at the conclusion of this particular film, he's basically thrown through a wood chipper. They destroy Dolph Lundgren's character's body. They destroy Andrew. They completely kill him off and mince him into small pieces, and you can see him float, what's left of him, the debris, floating through the air. There is no Andrew Scott to revive. He's dead. Completely shredded up to bits. So, of course, how do we explain how he could possibly come into the later films? Clones. That's the only possible way.
All right. I feel this situation requires something. I have to do it. Give me one moment. Keep talking for a moment. I want you to expand upon this thought, but I will reference something here in a second.
So effectively, they have to clone Dolph Lundgren's character from the first film, which of course is like because science is evil in this universe. Somehow, the crazy of Andrew Scott is literally ingrained in his DNA, as this clone will eventually start flipping out in the same general fashion. And generally, he will appear in other forms, or at least the various clones of him will, including, I swear, I can't remember if it's the one that's directly after this one. And yes, I see what Carlos is doing here, and it is very applicable.
I'm going to respond in picture form. Since we don't have real overlays, that's usually Manyninjas department, I give you, the audience, this.
Dolph Lundgren is indeed the Black Knight of the series.
'Tis but a flesh wound. You may continue.
It's one hell of a flesh wound. One that did critical damage.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
Required a lot of duct tape, Gorilla Glue, hot glue, whatever you want to say, in order to put him back together. Yeah.
Listen, which part of 'tis but a flesh wound, dude? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think you need another overlay there. You got the.
I'm looking for it. I'm just trying to finding it again.
Yeah.
While I'm doing that, please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's definitely not your overlay. Unless you want to start wearing the various ninja suits and the masks. There we go. Now you got the right one.
Yeah, I can only see out of the corner of my eye which one I was actually on, so it took me a moment.
That's also one of the old ones, but we'll find it eventually there. Anywho, generally, any further involvement inside of this series by Dolph Lundgren is not his original character, but that of a clone. Because, they really destroyed it the first time. They probably thought, we're not going to really need to bring this character back. And then they come back up here and say, oh shit, they actually want to bring this character back. How are we going to pull this shit off the... science it.
Hey, listen, science it works on everything. Didn't you know that?
No, there are a few things science can't fix.
That's a lie, and you know it.
Do you want proof?
I do.
Just look at Steven Seagal's career. Science could not fix that thing. And damn it, they tried.
That's just hurtful. Those are hurtful words, man. Those are hurtful words. Not even the ninja bear can bring this back.
He already has. There's even sunlight coming on it. I just bring this thing back on scene. Sunlight.
You're enamored by the damn bear, aren't you?
Well, it's either this or I have to find an excuse to say foreplay a lot during this thing. And I felt we could go with something new.
So that'll be the new gimmick. We're gonna have the stuffed bear.
I bring you something new every time.
These are the conditions I have to work under, and I want you to. I want all of you to understand. I haven't slept. I barely slept, and this is what I didn't. I knew about the damn bear. I didn't realize the bear would come on. You'll have to forgive. You'll see the little overlay there. You see the logo. You can actually see that. Not too bad, I would say. You can actually see that in my background.
It's not as bad as that one, but it's still. Once this is done, we'll have to help you find the proper set of overlays.
I actually have it somewhere, but I was trying to pull it back real quick after. It's loaded on the computer. That's the reason why you've been able to see it when it automatically loads when I start the broadcast. I've got it sitting somewhere on the hard drive. I just have to. I'm going to put it somewhere where I can just pull it up a little quicker. But that'll work out. So the last thing I'll say, though, we talked about the sequels a little bit. We pointed out, yeah, they had to do the cloning in order to make it work. It's the only way you could do it. And then actually, very strangely, they also had in 2012, they had a Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, which presumably is the last one of the series. And I believe, I don't want you to spoil this for you guys, but I'm fairly confident, if memory serves, Jean-Claude Van Damme dies in this movie, which finally kills off the character. But it's a very different kind of character by the end of this movie. They go into this whole convoluted thing. They start off with the original simple concept, Universal Soldier. He wants to go home and live a normal life. And then by the end of this, there's this whole convoluted... Oh, I'm sorry, actually. I should have switched the camera. We were actually looking at you the whole time I was talking. Sorry. At the very end of this one, basically... Jean-Claude Van Damme's character ends up creating a group or a cult or something like that around Universal Soldiers, and ironically, he reclones Dolph Lundgren as his associate in order to make it work, apparently. Yep. That pretty much sums it up. So any last thoughts then on the movie Manyninjas? You, the bear, does anyone have any thoughts?
Empty. As for the film itself, generally the first film is pretty good. The sequels, they probably could have done a lot without any of those sequels, and it would have helped keep the franchise in a better place. A lot of the sequels were honestly really unnecessary. But the first film on its own merits is a good film. Easily can recommend the film. Needed more splits though.
Indeed. I would say the same. Standalone movie. It's good. Real good. It runs by pretty fast. There's just enough in here to keep the action going. Crazy Dolph Lundgren is entertaining Dolph Lundgren. Jean-Claude Van Damme is passable. It's one of those things where they have some thoughts, some ideas that are kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, fortunately, they don't go into them too deeply because really, if you had tried to make this deeper than it really is, it wouldn't have worked nearly as well. You know, they call them unisouls. They call them universal soldiers, unstoppable killing machines. They're zombies. And in effect, that makes this the most entertaining zombie movie for my money. Because I'm not really into zombie movies, but technically this qualifies by the narrowest of margins by strict definition. Both people on the front are dead. And they're walking around killing people. But they don't eat brains. So that's it for the movie. We covered some of the sequels. We talked about that as well. Now, there's one order of business left, and then we'll get to plugging stuff. Real quick, just as a spoiler, I'm trying to still open boxes. I'm trying to get settled back in. But at least we should be back on a regular schedule. We'll make a decision. But here's the important part. We didn't get a chance to talk about it because, quite frankly, time again. Manyninjas. What are we going to do for next week's movie?
Right. I think I might have an easy answer to this, but it really depends on which version of the film they were talking about. In this case, there was a notice from Netflix earlier in the, or at least I noticed earlier in my inbox. Let's see if I can still find it. I'm right now looking in my browser right now. Let's see, no, not sent, deleted. It was advertising the arrival of Total Recall, which, yes, it was the 1990 version they're talking about. By Paul Verhoeven. I can't pronounce his damn last name. Verhoeven or something like that. Basically, it's the Arnold one, back from the 90s.
My goodness. Well, that means we're back to 1990. We're back to Schwarzenegger. We're back to the land of one-liners. I'm in favor of that. That sounds good. Total Recall will be the next movie we're going to do on Action Movie Show. I strongly suspect there will be overlays. It's going to be a short turnaround, but fortunately, since we have quick access to it, that should be no problem. We will be back on Monday, I swear.
Yeah.
Really. If we don't, Ninja Bear will kill us all.
By us all, we mean him. It's my bear. I will survive.
He'll turn on you. He'll turn on you in your sleep. The moment you go to bed, he will turn on you.
No. Realistically, though, it's hard to go wrong with a Schwarzenegger film. Because let's face it, most of them are action films, and they're generally just damn funny. I believe at this point, barring anything else, shall we just go into the advertising spiels for the day?
Yes, shamelessly promote yourself. Go ahead.
All right. Well, of course, hypothetically, now that everyone has been at least somewhat situated and back to some form of a functioning office, next Monday, hopefully, we'll be running the next Action Movie Show, talking about the 1990 Total Recall. I've been a bit quieter on my own end for the past bit due to some business which I can't fully explain right now. Perhaps I'll be able to clear up in the future. Oh, that's really heard some background noise. Anyway, perhaps I'll be able to clear in the future, but at least the moment I can't talk about it. But hypothetically, I'll be doing some more stuff for Retro Ninja Gaming in the very near future. Honestly, inspired by what we're going to say was a less than successful run on the AMS game stream, which is pretty much streamed done by my retro video game shop that's in downtown Toronto. I'm currently recording some slightly more successful playthroughs of part of Mega Man 3's boss fights, just as a demonstration how these things hypothetically should be done on a better format than what was the absolute messy gameplay that was seen as of yesterday. Speaking of which, we haven't set the date for it, but hypothetically the upcoming week I will also be going to the ANC World streaming area itself in order to work on the RoboCop NES stream with one of the regular streamers there, Daniel, otherwise known as the Tysonator. So that's going to be going on in the very next week, hopefully. And as for this Saturday, for anyone that's just around an area that's participating, which is quite a few comic shops, you'll have to check online to see availability. Just want to remind everyone that this Saturday is the first Saturday in May, is Free Comic Book Day. Yeah, I think that's all I want to plug for now. Other than the obvious, at Manyninjas on Twitter, I am manyninjas.com for more videos and updates related to my own stuff. And yeah, how about you, Carlos?
I'm gonna be opening boxes, horrible, horrible boxes, and then I'm gonna open more boxes. There's gonna be a lot of that. I will be. It's carlosalcazar.org at carlosalcazar2. This is a box cutter and X-Acto knife, which I use to open the boxes. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of that. I do still plan on doing some of those videos that I wanted to do. My big thing was I wanted to get the move complete. I've got kind of my office space here, which is actually pretty good space-wise for what I want to do. I got to kind of close off the back over here because right now, technically, this is open and it kind of leads into my hallway, and it also leads into a couple of things. Fortunately, I think you'll have to tell me. I don't know if I've been echoing or not, but I do have quite a bit of room here. Have I been giving off the echo? How's the sound?
I have not personally heard any echo on this end, but we'll have to check on the proper playthrough.
Right.
To see if that's the case.
Yeah, so I'm going to play around with it. This space here is kind of where I want to do it. I've actually got real sunlight out here on this end of it, and then I've got my light that I use on the side. But yeah, I'm going to try to work on some of those videos that I did want to work on before. Now, hopefully I'll have a little bit more time once I get everything unpacked. We'll do the show. I'll keep everything updated on the Twitter and on the website. I am going to update it with the new links. In the description, I'll include the information as usual. I'll also try to include it. If you want, you can send me the link to that stream, and I can throw that in the description as well for the live stream thing you're going to do.
Yeah, well, pretty much it's on Twitch, pretty much on Twitch TV, so I'll be providing girls with a link for what will be the actual page itself. And, of course, once I figure out the exact day of, I'll be sending updates on my own Twitter account to say there, and also reminding of the link at the same time. And yeah, that's probably how that's going to go down.
Absolutely. Now you'll have to forgive me. The transitions have been a little off today. Usually I do it manually, but I'm a little bit asleep at the wheel. So Manyninja's been talking and you've been seeing me, or I've been talking and you've been seeing him for a little bit longer than usual. Usually I'm a little quicker on that switch. We'll work on getting that back to normal. Next week we should. Well, if not more sleep, we'll at least be more caffeinated. So one way or the other, I think that'll work a little bit better. So for myself and Manyninjas, that's the action movie show. We'll try to be a little bit more on the ball next week. We'll try to get back to the normal Monday schedule. So only a couple of days. Pretty quick turnaround. 1 second. Let me switch the camera feed.
I have no idea why you switched the camera feed. There is nothing to be seen here. Everything is perfectly normal.
Yeah. So for myself and Manyninjas, that's been the action movie show. Next week we're going to do Total Recall, 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger, action movie classic. We'll see how it holds up. I'm curious to see how the feed looks, actually, because I'm going to also run it off Netflix, and we'll take a look. I do have the Blu-ray of it, but I'm going to run it off Netflix anyway. I'm going to check it out, see how it looks. I haven't watched the new one. I've only watched pieces of it. I might scan that as well, just to have kind of a basis of comparison. And then, you know what I'll also do next week, and I'll throw this at you, Manyninjas and Ninja Bear. I'll put you back on there. Since we're going to be doing another Schwarzenegger movie, Bill Simmons, columnist for ESPN and Grantland.com, actually did an article a little while back talking about a concept he referred to as the Action Hero Championship Belt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the article. He makes an argument for the dominant action movie guy of different eras. So if somebody released a series of blockbuster films in that year, they're the action movie champion, so to speak. But then somebody can take the belt away if they get on a run of blockbusters. So really, the belt holder is like the top action star of that year or that era. Well, the guy who tends to win the belt the most, if memory serves from that article, was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I kind of want you to check out the article, and then I think we'll discuss that a little bit since we're going to be talking about Schwarzenegger next week.
All right, that sounds good.
Give us a little something to talk about. So, for myself and Manyninjas, thanks very much for watching. Appreciate your patience as we tried to get back to everything online. We'll try to get back to the normal schedule as much as possible here. If it is going to be off, we will make notes on Twitter, but I think we'll be all right for the next episode. So, for myself, Manyninjas,
Take it easy, ladies and gentlemen. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to put you down for a moment there. I smell bacon somewhere, so everyone take care, and I'll catch you all later.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody. See you next time.